There are winter nights that feel cold, and then there are nights like this one, nights so still, so unnervingly silent, that it seems even the snow has stopped breathing. Prince Arin felt that silence before he heard it, a slow, creeping quiet that settled across the kingdom like a heavy blanket. Too heavy, too quiet, too strange. The kind of silence that makes you pause without knowing why. The kind that wraps itself around your thoughts and whispers, "Something isn't right." He stood at the top of the stone steps leading to the courtyard. No wind, no voices, no distant crack of ice shifting on rooftops. The world was frozen, not in a dramatic, chaotic way, but in a way that felt almost intentional, as if winter itself were listening. Arin exhaled softly, watching his breath drift and fade into the pale night air. The snow beneath his boots didn't crunch. It simply accepted his weight as if it had been waiting. For days, strange things had been happening. The horses, once lively, grew quiet and restless. The stable fires struggled to stay lit, as though the cold was pulling their warmth away. And the grass, every last blade, had disappeared from the fields without a trace. Not trampled, not wilted, gone. People whispered about it in low voices, wondering how a gentle winter could become so relentless. The kind of winter that didn't roar, but watched. And tonight, that watching felt closer. Arin made his way to the stables, his footsteps soft, his breath slow and controlled. This wasn't fear, not exactly. It was something deeper, a sense that the night wanted him to move carefully. Inside, his horse lifted its head the moment he entered. The animal wasn't anxious, but alert, listening to the same silence Arin felt in his bones. "Easy," Arin murmured, placing a steady hand on its neck. The warmth of the horse grounded him, a small island of heat in a world turning colder by the hour. He had heard rumors, quiet ones, about a valley far beyond the frozen hills, a place untouched by the winter's strange hunger, a place where a rare kind of grass still grew, rumored to survive even the harshest seasons. No one had gone there in years. Some believed the valley didn't exist anymore. Others believed it was protected by something ancient. But with the horses weakening and the cold deepening, Arin knew one thing for certain. Someone had to try. He tightened the saddle with slow, deliberate movements, each buckle making a soft, metallic click that seemed far louder than it should have in the unnatural quiet. His horse snorted gently, and even that sound felt swallowed by the night. Arin stepped outside, leading the horse toward the open gate. The moon hung low and heavy, casting a pale silver light across the snow. Enough to travel, but not enough to comfort. For a moment he paused at the threshold of the gate. A breath, a stillness, a feeling as though winter itself was waiting to see what he would do. Then he stepped forward. The snow didn't resist. It didn't sink beneath his boots. It simply parted, and with that small, almost imperceptible shift, the journey began, quiet, cold, and carrying the weight of a winter that felt far too alive. The further Arin moved from the castle walls, the clearer the silence became. It wasn't empty. It was focused, like the world had turned its attention toward him, waiting for his next step. The horse walked slowly, hooves pressing into the soft snow, with a rhythmic, muted thump. Thump, thump, steady enough to lull the mind, yet somehow deeper tonight, almost resonant. Arin kept one hand on the reins, and the other gently resting on the horse's mane, feeling its warmth through his glove. It comforted him more than he wanted to admit. The road ahead stretched into a soft white blur, the moonlight painting everything in shades of quiet silver. But something was different. He had traveled this path dozens of times in his life. He knew the way the trees bent toward the road, the way the forest thinned before widening again. Yet tonight none of it looked familiar, not wrong, just different, as if winter had rearranged the land out of boredom. A small, nearly soundless breeze brushed against his face, not cold, just present. Gentle like a hand tapping his shoulder, Aron slowed the horse. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. There was nothing to hear, but he had felt it. The snow on the trees shifted ever so slightly, falling in tiny, weightless flakes that sparkled before disappearing into the night. It was the only movement in a world that felt paused. As he continued down the path, the forest began to change again, subtle curves that weren't there before, openings between trees that felt purposeful. The road itself seemed to guide him, not forcefully, but with a kind of quiet suggestion. Aron didn't fight it. The calm around him felt intentional, but not threatening. After nearly an hour of riding at a slow, steady pace, he finally saw something familiar, the old stone marker near the river. Except tonight it looked cleaner, less worn, as if someone had brushed the years off its surface. He stopped beside it, dismounted, and knelt down. His fingers brushed the stone. It was warm, not hot, not magical, just warmer than the freezing air around it. Snow shouldn't leave a stone warm. Aron looked up slowly. Someone was here, he said to himself, but even as he spoke, he wasn't sure if he meant a person or something else. The horse suddenly turned its head toward the forest, ears pricked forward, not in fear, just listening. Aron held his breath. He almost expected to hear footsteps, branches cracking, or the distant call of an animal. Nothing. But that nothing had a shape, a presence. It felt like being observed by something patiently curious. Aron exhaled slowly. "If you're guiding me," he said softly into the night, "I'll follow." He didn't know who or what he was speaking to, but the air felt lighter after he said the words, as if the cold had nodded. He mounted again, letting the reins rest loosely in his hands. He didn't steer this time. He simply allowed the horse to move where it wanted, and the horse chose a narrow path that dipped gently into the white forest. A path Aron had never seen before, a path that didn't exist that morning, a path that seemed to be waiting just for him. The journey into the deeper snow began, guided by silence that felt almost alive. The deeper Aron rode into the forest, the more the silence changed. It was no longer the empty, frozen quiet near the castle. This silence felt aware, soft, attentive, like the trees were leaning in, not to threaten him, but to hear him breathe. The path his horse followed was narrow, barely more than a ribbon of untouched snow winding between tall, dark pines. Their branches drooped under the weight of winter, creating a kind of archway above him. Each step of the horse made a gentle, cushioned sound, more like a heartbeat than a hoofprint. Aron found himself matching his breathing to the rhythm, slow and steady. The cold air filled his lungs in a way that felt almost pleasant, clean, crisp, grounding. The forest wasn't hostile. If anything, it felt welcoming, watching, curious. After a while, Aron noticed something peculiar. Every time he shifted in the saddle, even the smallest movement, the forest seemed to react. Snowflakes drifted from branches at the slightest sound. The wind murmured when he whispered to his horse. It was as if the woods were echoing him in gentle, delayed breaths. He leaned forward, speaking softly. "Is someone guiding us?" A faint breeze moved through the trees in a slow, steady wave, brushing lightly across his face. Not cold, not biting, just responding. His horse walked confidently, as if it too sensed a presence that meant no harm. Aron loosened his grip on the reins entirely now. The horse didn't stray or hesitate. It knew where to go, or something knew for it. A small clearing appeared ahead, circular and smooth, like a bowl carved into the forest floor. Snow covered everything, but the snow here shimmered differently, soft glints of silver catching the moonlight at gentle, slow intervals, not sparkling, just glowing, faintly, calmly. Aron dismounted, boots sinking just slightly into the snow with a soft, cushioned sound. When he stood upright, the wind calmed so suddenly that he held still, unsure if he had startled something. Then he heard it, a sound so small and delicate that it barely existed. A whisper, not in a language, not a voice, just a presence brushing the edge of perception. Aron closed his eyes. The whisper felt like a memory he couldn't quite grasp, a warmth behind the heart, a comfort that had no shape. When he opened his eyes, he noticed something on the far end of the clearing, a line of tracks in the snow. But they weren't human. They weren't exactly animal either. Too large for a deer, too light for a bear, too defined to be some trick of melting snow. They had an elegance to them, a symmetry. Aron crouched down and touched one of the prints. The snow inside it was warm. He pulled his hand back instinctively, breath steady but curious. Something had passed through here recently, something that didn't fear the cold, something that walked with purpose. The horse lifted its head, ears alert but calm, facing the same direction as the tracks. Aron stood slowly. "Show me," he whispered. The wind stirred again, soft, guiding as if answering his words. And from the far tree line, just beyond the glow of the clearing, a faint shape moved, slow, silent, snow-white, watching him. For a long moment the shape at the tree line didn't move. It simply stood there, still, pale, blending almost perfectly with the heavy snow. If Aron hadn't been looking directly at it, he might have missed it entirely. The forest around him remained silent, steady, almost respectful. Even the air seemed to pause. Aron felt no fear. Surprise, yes. Curiosity, absolutely. But fear had no place in this quiet moment. He took a slow breath in, letting the cold settle gently in his lungs. Then he exhaled just as slowly. The shape reacted, not by retreating, but by subtly lifting its head, as if listening. Aron whispered, "I see you." The whisper wasn't loud, it didn't echo, but something in the forest responded. A breeze drifted through the clearing, moving with an almost rhythmic calm. The branches overhead shifted softly, releasing a delicate cascade of snowflakes. They fell in a slow, graceful pattern, like the forest was exhaling with him. The shape took a single step forward. Aron's horse didn't flinch. Instead, it lowered its head calmly, as though acknowledging something familiar. Aron placed a steady hand along its neck, grounding himself. The creature was still far enough away that he couldn't make out its features, but as the wind brushed past him again, Aron felt a subtle warmth layered within the cold. A presence, not threatening but aware. He spoke again, this time more softly, like speaking to a friend in a quiet room. "I'm not here to harm anything." Another step forward, slow, unhurried, deliberate. The moonlight finally reached it, a tall shape covered in thick snow-white fur that shimmered faintly with each gentle movement. Its size was impressive but not intimidating. Its posture wasn't predatory. It felt more like a guardian, something ancient, steady, and deeply connected to the winter around it. Aron kept breathing slowly. He resisted the urge to move closer. This moment asked for calm, patience, trust. The creature tilted its head slightly, studying him with a curiosity that mirrored his own. Aron felt a strange sensation, something inside the air, a quiet recognition that didn't need words. He took one step forward, not bold, not reckless, just offering presence. The creature didn't react with fear. Instead, its ears twitched gently, snow glimmering along its fur. Aron noticed something then, the warm tracks he had touched earlier. They were shaped like this creature's feet. The warmth wasn't from magic. It was from life, something alive enough to defy winter's freeze. Aron spoke again, barely above a murmur. "I'm looking for the last grass, the kind that grows even in seasons like this." The creature's head lifted slightly, as if it understood, or at least recognized the intention behind his voice. The forest wind stirred one more time, swirling gently between Aron and the creature, almost drawing a line of connection. Then, with a smooth, fluid motion, the creature turned its body, not away but to the side. It looked back at Aron, holding his gaze, and took a single, slow step deeper into the forest. An invitation. Aron placed a calming hand on the horse. "Easy. It wants us to follow." The horse responded with a quiet snort, soft and low, then began moving toward the creature's path without hesitation. Aron followed, letting the snow cradle each step, letting the silence guide him deeper, letting trust replace fear. And beneath the cold, he felt it again. The sense that winter wasn't the enemy at all, but something trying to lead him somewhere important. The creature moved ahead of Aron with a slow, confident grace, never too fast, never out of sight. It walked as though it had all the time in the world, its white fur shimmering softly each time a faint breeze stirred the air. Aron followed on horseback, each step quiet, the snow absorbing sound like a thick blanket. The forest deepened around them. The trees grew taller, darker, older, ancient shapes that seemed carved from the winter itself. But instead of feeling trapped, Aron felt guided, safe even. The horse's breathing stayed calm and steady, matching the rhythm of the creature's deliberate footsteps. After what felt like a long but peaceful stretch of time, Aron noticed something strange. The Isher was getting warmer, not warm like a fire, not warm like spring, just less cold. A soft, subtle shift that his skin felt before he fully understood it. He inhaled deeply. The air still held winter's crispness, but there was a gentle warmth layered underneath, like the breath of the earth rising through the snow. The creature paused at the crest of a small hill and looked back at Aron. It didn't make a sound. It didn't need to. Aron guided his horse to the top of the hill, and what lay below him made him stop completely. The valley. A round, quiet bowl of land nestled between snow-covered ridges, glowing softly beneath the moonlight. But unlike the rest of the forest, this valley wasn't entirely frozen. Patches of earth peeked through the snow, dark and alive. And at the center, a small field of grass swayed gently, golden and warm, untouched by the cold. Not bright gold, nothing magical or unrealistic, just a warm, honey-colored grass that looked impossibly alive in the middle of winter. Aron felt a slow, almost emotional breath leave him. He had found it. the last grass. The creature descended the slope first, moving with the serene confidence of a guardian returning home. Aron followed on foot now, leading his horse carefully so as not to disturb the quiet of the valley. The closer he came to the grass, the more he felt a soft warmth radiating from the earth, not hot, not unnatural, just comforting. At the edge of the field, the creature stopped. It turned toward Aron and lowered its head slightly. A gesture of permission. Aron knelt carefully, brushing his glove lightly over the tips of the grass. It was soft, resilient, the kind of plant that shouldn't survive this season, yet somehow did. He took a small handful, no more than what was needed, cutting it gently with a small knife he carried at his belt. As he tucked the precious bundle into his pack, the ground beneath him pulsed with a faint, soothing warmth, like the valley was acknowledging his care. "I won't take more than what the horses need," Aron whispered, speaking to the creature, the valley, or perhaps winter itself. The creature's ears twitched. The wind shifted gently. The valley felt alive in its stillness. Aron stood securing his pack. His mission was nearly complete, but he sensed one more thing, something the creature wanted him to understand before he left. It took a quiet step forward, meeting his gaze with deep, steady calm. The journey here had never been about conquering the cold. It had always been about listening to what winter was trying to say. Aron stood in the quiet valley, the warm bundle of golden grass secured inside his pack. The creature watched him for a moment longer, silent, steady, as calm as the snowfall around them. There was no tension, no demand, no warning, only a peaceful understanding that the journey was ready to turn homeward. The horse exhaled softly beside him, its breath rising in slow, gentle clouds. Aron placed a hand along its neck, grounding himself in the steady rhythm of the animal's warmth. For the first time since winter began, the world didn't feel heavy. Not threatening, just peaceful, as if the season itself had softened around him. He turned to the creature. "Thank you," he whispered. The words came out naturally, carried on a breath that felt lighter than he had taken on this journey. The creature blinked once, slowly. Then it lifted its head toward the ridge above, guiding him not with movement, but with presence. Aron understood. The way back would be the same quiet path, but different now, not as a challenge, not as a test, simply a return. He mounted the horse carefully, the leather saddle giving a soft creak that the valley seemed to absorb. The creature stepped aside, allowing them to pass. Snow shifted gently around its paws, warm enough not to freeze, cold enough to belong. As Aron rode toward the narrow slope that led out of the valley, he felt the air change again. The warmth faded, but not sharply, more like a hand releasing his own, slow and gentle. The cold returned in its natural state, crisp, honest, familiar. At the ridge, Aron looked back one last time. The valley glowed faintly in the moonlight, a soft pulse beneath the snow as if breathing. The creature stood at the center of the clearing, a white silhouette perfectly blended into the winter. Then, slowly, it bowed its head, not a dramatic gesture, but one of quiet acknowledgment. Aron bowed his head in return. He guided his horse into the forest, and the path formed effortlessly before them. The trees felt less imposing now, their silence no longer heavy but calm, like a long rhythmic breath filling the night. The wind whispered through the branches in gentle waves, almost melodic, as though humming a lullaby only the forest knew. Aron followed the sound, Step by step the familiar world began to return. The old stone marker near the river, the curve in the path he had traveled since childhood, the frozen stream that reflected the moon like glass. All of it felt different, not changed, just seen more clearly. By the time he reached the castle gates, the night had softened. A few lanterns flickered along the walls, glowing faintly behind drifting snow. The guards, half asleep, straightened as the prince approached, surprise mixing with relief. Aron dismounted quietly. "We have what the horses need," he said, voice low but certain. The stablemaster hurried forward, eyes widening as Aron handed him the warm bundle of golden grass. Thalen didn't speak. He simply placed a hand over his heart, moved by the sight more than by the words. Inside the stables the horses stirred, their tired bodies lifted, ears turning toward the faint scent of the grass. Hope, not loud or dramatic but gentle, filled the space. Aron felt it settle in his chest too. Winter was still here. The cold remained. But something in the kingdom had shifted. A quiet message carried back from the heart of the forest. Winter is not your enemy. It simply asks you to listen. The castle settled into a peaceful silence as the night stretched onward. Not the eerie quiet that had haunted the kingdom in recent weeks, but a gentler kind, warm, steady, familiar. A silence that felt like a blanket rather than a warning, a quiet that invited rest instead of fear. Aron walked slowly through the dimly lit corridors, the soft glow of lanterns guiding him like small floating stars. Each step echoed faintly against the stone walls, a soft rhythm blending into the calm of the night. He wasn't tired exactly, but something inside him had settled, like a deep exhale after holding breath for too long. Outside, snow continued to fall, but it fell differently now. The flakes drifted down in slow, unhurried spirals, brushing lightly against the windows without urgency. The winter that once felt watchful and heavy now seemed peaceful, almost protective, as if it had been waiting for this moment. A moment where the prince returned not triumphant, but grounded, connected to something deep and old. Aron stepped into the stable one last time before seeking rest. The horses were quieter now, gathered near the warmth of the lamps. Their breaths rose and fell in soft clouds, steady and even. A few lifted their heads when he entered, their eyes reflecting a calm trust. He approached the nearest horse, an older mare with a gentle spirit. She nudged his hand softly, sensing the change in him. Aron smiled, running his fingers along her mane. "It's going to be all right," he whispered, though he knew she already felt it. The golden grass he had brought back now rested in careful bundles along the stable shelves, glowing subtly in the lantern light. The warmest patches had already been distributed among the hungriest horses, their bodies relaxer noticeably, muscles loosening, eyes softening. Hope didn't appear as a grand moment. It appeared here, in tiny breaths and quiet sighs. Aron left the stables and stepped back outside. The air was cold, yes, but not biting. It greeted him like an old friend. He closed his eyes, letting the delicate snowflakes brush against his eyelashes and cheeks. The forest beyond the walls stood silent and dark, but in that darkness he felt no danger, only understanding. Somewhere far away he imagined the white creature standing in its valley of warm earth, guarding the last grass, watching over the land with patient calm, not a threat, not a myth. Simply a part of winter that most people would never see, but that he now carried with him. When he returned to his room, Aron lit a single candle by the window. The flame flickered gently, moving with the breath of the night. He removed his gloves, unfastened his cloak, and sat on the edge of his bed, feeling the quiet sink into his bones. The castle was finally resting. The kingdom was finally breathing again. Aron let his eyes drift half closed, allowing the warmth of the candle and the hush of snowfall to blend together. The world felt softer, slower, almost weightless. He thought of the path through the forest, the whispering air, the valley glowing beneath the moon. He thought of how the journey hadn't changed winter, only his understanding of it. As he lay back and pulled the blanket over him, a final thought settled gently in his mind, calm, steady, peaceful. Some winters aren't meant to be endured. Some are meant to be listened to. And with that soft truth warming him more than any fire could, Prince Aron drifted into the kind of sleep that only comes after a journey completed, and a world finally at peace. Morning arrived without sound. There was no trumpet of sunlight, no sudden burst of brightness across the horizon. Instead, dawn eased into the kingdom the same way a soft blanket drapes over a sleeping child, slow, careful, and wonderfully quiet. Aron woke not because of noise, but because of warmth. A soft, muted warmth filtered through his window, carried by a delicate, early light. He blinked slowly, letting his eyes adjust to the pale gold glow. For the first time in many weeks, he didn't feel the sharp cold of winter pressing against the room. The air was still cool, yes, but gentle, a coolness that felt natural, not demanding. He sat up slowly, letting his feet rest on the floor, grounding himself in the day ahead. There was no urgency pushing at him, no heaviness in the air. The world, it seemed, had given him permission to move at his own pace. When he stepped to the window, he noticed something different. The snow looked softer, its surface smooth and velvety, like a quilt laid out across the land. The sky glowed with muted pinks and faint silver, blending together in a quiet harmony. And for the first time this winter, Aron saw a thin wisp of mist rising from the stables. Warm breath, warm life. He inhaled deeply, the scent of morning snow mixing with the faint smell of hay and wood smoke drifting across the courtyard. Each sensory detail arrived gently, as though trying not to disturb the fragile peace. Aron made his way to the stables, boots leaving shallow prints in the softened snow. The cold was no longer biting. It clung to him like a familiar memory, calmer and far less insistent. Inside, the horses stood with relaxed bodies, their breaths slow and content. They weren't restless anymore. They weren't searching the ground for food. They were simply present, accepting, peaceful. The golden grass from the valley had been placed with care, portioned thoughtfully. Some of the horses ate in slow, steady motions. Others slept lightly, heads lowered, eyelids soft with comfort. The stable seemed to hum with a tranquil rhythm, a shared relief spreading from creature to creature. Thalen, the stablemaster, approached quietly, not wanting to break the calm. He smiled faintly. "They slept through the whole night," he whispered, as though speaking any louder might undo the delicate balance. Aron nodded, running his hand gently along a horse's neck. The animal leaned into the touch without hesitation. As he stood there, Aron felt something shift within him, subtle like a snowflake landing on warm skin. A small understanding, soft but certain. Sometimes the world changes not in storms or battles, but in the quiet decisions, the gentle choices, the moments where one listens instead of pushes. He stepped back outside, the fresh air brushing softly against his face. The kingdom felt different, not transformed, but calmer, more aware, as though winter itself had loosened its grip. Exhaling after many long weeks, looking toward the distant forest, Auron imagined the white creature standing beneath the trees, still watching, still guarding, still listening, a silent presence woven into the rhythm of the land. Auron closed his eyes. The morning was peaceful. His breath was steady. The world was finally soft again. And with the quiet warmth of the day beginning to settle around him, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long while. Night returned gently, as if it didn't want to disturb anyone who had finally found peace. It settled over the kingdom with a soft, graceful touch, drawing long shadows across the snow and quieting every echo until the world felt hushed, balanced, and perfectly still. The castle breathed slowly, almost like a sleeping giant. Warm light flickered behind a few windows, dim and golden, swaying softly with the rhythm of the evening breeze. Even the stones seemed calmer now, holding warmth where once they had held cold. Auron walked through the courtyard at a relaxed pace, his steps unhurried. The snow beneath his boots gave only the faintest sound, light, muted, comforting. He paused for a moment, allowing the silence to press gently around him. It wasn't the heavy silence from before. It was peaceful, open, welcoming. He lifted his face to the sky. Clouds drifted lazily overhead, stretching across the moon like soft fabric. The light that filtered through was gentle and cool, illuminating the snow in a pale glow. The air carried a faint scent of pine and frost, blending into the night like a quiet lullaby. Auron closed his eyes, breathed in, held it, released it slowly. The world felt soft beneath that breath. He walked toward the stables again, not out of duty, but because something about that quiet place felt grounding, like a heartbeat in the center of the kingdom. When he entered, the horses stirred only slightly. Some remained asleep, their sides rising and falling in slow, steady waves. Others blinked drowsily, perfectly at ease in the warm glow of lantern light. Auron rested a hand on a wooden beam, feeling the solid, smooth texture beneath his fingertips. The warmth of the stable crept gently into his skin, calming his muscles and easing the last bits of tension left in him. Everything felt in harmony, the breath of the horses, the soft crackle of the lantern flame, the delicate rustle of hay, even the quiet shifting of snow outside the wooden walls. It all blended together into a single, soothing rhythm. He whispered into the quiet, unsure whether he was speaking to the horses, the night, or himself. Rest. Tonight, everything rests. When he stepped back outside, the cold met him with a gentle embrace, not harsh, but cool and calming, the kind of cold that clears the mind and eases the body into stillness. He looked toward the distant mountains, their silhouettes deep and serene beneath the moonlight. Somewhere beyond them lay the valley where warmth lived under the snow, guarded by ancient calm. Auron imagined the white creature there, watchful, peaceful, existing between breaths of the earth. He felt no need to return. The journey was complete. The lesson was simple. Not all power is loud. Not all protection is fierce. Sometimes the softest forces are the ones that guide us home. Auron returned to his room, the candlelight inside dancing with quiet warmth. As he lay down, the blankets settled around him like a gentle snowfall, light and comforting. His eyes grew heavy, sinking into the softness of the pillow. Outside, the kingdom drifted into sleep. Inside, Aron followed, breathing slow, shoulders relaxed, thoughts quieting one by one, and as he slipped into peaceful rest, the night held the kingdom in its calm embrace, steady, warm, and endlessly gentle. The night had fully settled now, stretching across the sky like a soft, endless blanket. The kingdom slept in quiet harmony, each breath from the houses rising gently into the cool air, fading like small whispers into the darkness. Everything had slowed, softened, eased into stillness. Inside his chamber, Aron lay beneath warm covers, the faint glow of a single candle flickering beside him. The flame danced slowly, its light moving in quiet waves across the stone walls, as if trying not to wake them. The warmth from the candle reached him in subtle pulses, comforting, steady. He allowed his body to sink deeper into the mattress. He let his shoulders rest. He let his hands soften. He let his breathing fall into a gentle rhythm, in and out. Slow, unhurried, natural. Outside the window, snow began to fall again. But it wasn't cold. It wasn't heavy. It drifted like feathers, landing softly along the windowsill, one flake at a time. The sound, if there even was one, was so delicate that it felt more like a feeling than a noise, a kind of soft hush that wrapped itself around the room. Aron closed his eyes, and the world grew even quieter. He imagined the valley far beyond the mountains, the one the white creature guarded so patiently. He pictured the warm, golden grass swaying gently under the moonlight. Each blade moved in slow, calm waves, like a breathing landscape rising and falling, whispering comfort into the night. He imagined standing there again, feeling the warmth beneath the snow, feeling the stillness, the balance, the peace. And in his mind the creature appeared, not close, not far, simply present. Its calm gaze felt like a soft hand resting on his shoulder, reminding him that the world was allowed to be gentle. The memory of the journey didn't stir excitement. It didn't awaken fear. It created a deep, grounding calm. Aron's breathing slowed even more, in and out, each breath softer than the last. His thoughts drifted like snowflakes carried by a mild breeze, one thought forming, another dissolving, none demanding attention, all of them light, all of them easy. The candle at his bedside grew dimmer, its flame settling into smaller movements. Its glow wrapped the room in a warm haze, blurring the edges of everything, pulling the world into softness. The blanket felt heavier now, but in a comforting way, a safe weight, a grounding presence. He could feel the castle breathing around him, slow, steady, in time with his own breaths. Outside, the forest whispered, not words, not warnings, just a low, constant hum of winter's calm voice. As Aron drifted deeper into rest, the line between waking and dreaming began to blur. Images softened, sounds faded, the world thinned into warmth and darkness. His last conscious thought came like the gentlest snowfall. Everything is safe, everything is quiet, everything is at peace. And with that, his mind surrendered fully to sleep. Slowly, smoothly, naturally, the kingdom slept. The prince slept. And winter, for the first time in a long time, slept too. The night outside the castle had settled into complete stillness. No wind, no shifting snow, only the soft, gentle hum of winter resting over the land. Inside Aron's chamber, the candle had almost burned down to a small pool of warm light, flickering with a slow, calming rhythm, like a heartbeat softened by sleep. Though Aron's body had already begun sinking into restful dreams, something warm and steady lingered in the quiet room. a presence not of a creature or a person, but of the world itself, guiding him deeper, inviting him to breathe with the same gentle rhythm that held the kingdom. If the winter could speak, its voice would be this silence, a slow drift, a long pause, a soft exhale, the kind of breath you can feel in your chest, but only if you allow yourself to slow down enough to notice. Aron inhaled unconsciously, following that rhythm, a long, calm breath, cool air filling his lungs, softening every thought inside him. Hold, just for a moment, letting the air settle. Then he released it, just as slowly. The quiet deepened. It felt as if the castle walls exhaled with him, as if the snow beyond the window melted into softness with each breath he took. Even the distant forest seemed to respond, its trees swaying gently in a rhythm he could feel but not hear. In and out. Aron's body relaxed further, the weight of the blankets pressing gently over him. His muscles softened, his chest rose and fell in slow, soothing waves. His breath matched the cadence of winter, the calm, ancient pattern that had guided him through the valley. In his drifting thoughts, he saw the warm patch of earth again, the golden grass shimmering softly in the moonlight, the quiet valley breathing beneath a blanket of snow. The white creature stood nearby in his mind, steady and peaceful, nodding with each slow inhale, lowering its head with each gentle exhale. A silent guide, Aron breathed with it, in and out, longer, slower, as if the breath traveled through the valley first, picking up its warmth, then returning to him. The candle flickered lower, its glow stretched softly across the room, painting everything in warm gold. The flame itself seemed to match his breathing, rising gently with an inhale, settling quietly with an exhale. Aron sank deeper, thoughts dissolved, the castle faded, even the memory of the journey softened into a light, feather-like drift. All that remained was breath, steady, slow, peaceful, the kind of breath that belongs not just to one person, but to a whole world finally at rest. As Aron floated toward the final layers of sleep, his breath and winter's breath became the same rhythm, soft, calm, perfectly matched. In, out, slower, quieter, until the breaths grew too light to notice, too gentle to follow, fading into the soft darkness of deep, uninterrupted rest. And the entire kingdom seemed to breathe with him, settling into the most peaceful night it had known in many long, cold weeks. Night drifted across the kingdom like a gentle tide, rising and falling in slow, soothing waves. The snow outside Aron's window shimmered faintly under the moonlight, each tiny flake glowing for a heartbeat before fading into stillness. It was as if winter itself was singing, a quiet lullaby carried through the cold air, soft enough to calm even the deepest worries. Inside the castle, warmth gathered in small pockets, a glowing ember in the hearth, a candle melting into calm golden pools, the steady hum of stone slowly releasing the day's cold. Aron lay beneath his blankets, eyes closed, body completely relaxed. But something beautiful lingered in the air, something soothing, steady, ancient, a presence without form, a feeling without words. It filled the room like a soft melody that didn't need to be heard to be felt. The lullaby began not with sound, but with breath. A long, slow inhale from the world outside, and a gentle exhale that seemed to pass through the walls, calming everything it touched. The snow responded first. It settled more deeply on the rooftops. It drifted more slowly past the windows. It softened its own weight, becoming lighter, almost weightless, like a dream taking shape. Then the forest answered. Its tall pines swayed the smallest amount, their needles brushing one another with a faint, rhythmic whisper. Not a warning, not a call, just a sleepy murmur blending with the hush of the night. The trees, still and old, rocked slightly as if lulling themselves into rest. Aron felt the lullaby reach him next. It wrapped around him like a warm shawl, smoothing the edges of every thought. His breathing became slower, deeper, synchronized with the gentle pulse of the winter night. In and out. Soft, steady. The boundary between his body and the blankets blurred. His limbs felt light, sinking just enough to feel held. His mind floated quietly, drifting like a flake of snow carried by a calm breeze. Somewhere far away, though not truly far, he imagined the white creature in its valley. Not moving, not watching, simply resting beneath the moon's soft glow. Its large frame curled gently around the warmth of the earth, its breath rising and falling like a slow drumbeat. In Aron's mind the creature hummed a soundless lullaby, a rhythm more than a song, a presence more than a melody. The golden grass swayed in time with the creature's breath, brushing softly against the warm soil beneath the snow. Each movement produced a feeling in the air, a kind of hushed reassurance. Sleep. It's safe to sleep. Aron's consciousness floated toward the valley, carried effortlessly by that silent hum. He felt his thoughts dissolving, becoming soft silhouettes with no edges, no weight. The lullaby deepened, slower, gentler, warmer. Every breath Aron took melted into the night, blending with the forest, the snow, the creature, the valley, and the quiet kingdom, finally at peace. The world exhaled one last time, a long, velvety sigh that seemed to wrap itself around him. And in that comforting, endless softness, Aron drifted into sleep so deep that even dreams stepped lightly not to disturb him. Deep in the heart of the night, the kingdom rested in perfect stillness. The world outside Aron's window had softened into long, slow breaths of winter. Snow drifted in smooth, steady patterns, settling gently across rooftops, trees, and the quiet stone paths of the courtyard. Nothing rushed, nothing pushed, everything moved with the calm, rhythmic flow of a world ready for sleep. Inside his chamber, Aron floated in a soft cocoon of warmth. His body lay completely at rest beneath heavy blankets, their weight grounding him in a way that felt safe, reassuring, like the world was holding him steady. The quiet lullaby of winter reached him once more, not as a song, not as a voice, but as a gentle invitation to let every part of him loosen, soften, and release. It began at his feet. A warmth spread slowly there, like standing near the valley's warm earth again. His toes relaxed, the muscles in his arches softened, and the tension in his ankles dissolved in smooth, steady waves. The feeling drifted upward, slow enough to savor, warm enough to anchor him deeper into rest. His legs followed. The warmth climbed through his calves, muscles unwinding, lengthening, releasing into stillness. His knees grew lighter, freer, as though unburdened by distances traveled. His thighs softened next, sinking more deeply into the mattress. No effort, no strain, just heavy, comforting rest. A gentle exhale slipped from his chest. The warmth continued upward, reaching his hips, spreading across his lower back. Any strain from riding through the forest faded, dissolving like snowflakes falling onto warm ground. His body welcomed the stillness, allowing it to settle inside him like a slow, glowing breath. The calm rose into his stomach, softening, loosening, smoothing the last traces of tension. Every inhale lifted him slightly. Every exhale released him back into the quiet. The warmth reached his chest now. His heart slowed into a peaceful rhythm, steady and sure. His ribs expanded gently with each breath, the movement smooth and effortless. His lungs filled with the soft coolness of winter air, held it and released it with long, calming exhales. In, out, slower, softer, deeper. Aron imagined the white creature breathing with him, its large chest rising with quiet strength, falling with ancient calm, guiding the world into rest. The warmth rose into his shoulders. They softened downward, heavy and warm, dropping away from his ears, melting all the tightness that lingered from days of quiet worry. His arms felt weightless now, releasing tension from elbow to wrist. His hands softened, fingers uncurling in slow, natural stillness. The relaxation swept up his neck next, light, smooth, quiet. His jaw released, his eyelids grew heavier, fluttering gently as if wrapped in snow. Finally the warmth reached the crown of his head. His thoughts drifted outward like distant lights disappearing into soft fog. Each idea softened, each memory grew lighter, until nothing remained but peaceful darkness and the steady rhythm of breath. Aron's entire body rested in harmony with winter, calm, grounded, safe. Outside, the world breathed with him, in and out, a synchronized lullaby across snow, stone, forest, and sky. And with every slow breath the prince drifted deeper and deeper into quiet, uninterrupted sleep. The warmth that had settled across Aron's body began to soften even further, thinning at the edges until it felt less like heat and more like light. Not a bright light, not glowing or sharp, just a gentle illumination drifting through him, moving slowly, calmly, like snowflakes carried by a soft current. His breaths had grown so quiet now that even he could barely feel them. Not shallow, just slow, slow enough that each inhale felt like a tiny ripple, and each exhale felt like it dissolved softly into the air around him. The world was no longer exactly the room, and not yet a dream. It was the space in between, that weightless, warm moment when thoughts loosen from the real world and begin to float freely. Aron felt himself drifting there. The darkness behind his eyelids wasn't empty. It was velvety, warm, and full of the soft pulse of winter night. He could sense the snow beyond his window, not as something cold, but as a quiet ocean of white stretching outward, calm and endless. A faint breeze, real or imagined, brushed across his mind. It carried with it a familiar presence, the memory of the valley, the warm earth beneath the snow, the soft glow of the golden grass swaying in gentle rhythm. The valley appeared in his thoughts not as a place he traveled to, but as a feeling, a safe feeling, a grounded, warm, welcoming place carved out of silence and peace. The white creature was there too, not approaching, not calling, simply existing in stillness. Its breath moved the air in slow, deep waves, guiding Aron's drifting mind the same way it had guided him through the forest. No urgency, no direction, just the gentle reassurance of something calm and ancient keeping watch. Aron felt himself float closer. The dream was forming, not suddenly, not clearly, more like a soft watercolor, colors blending quietly at the edges, pale blues of moonlit snow, warm golds of hidden grass, and deep silvers of quiet winter sky. He stepped inside the dream without moving his body. The world around him brightened softly, as if the dream had been waiting for him to arrive. Snowflakes drifted upward instead of down, a slow, graceful dance that felt impossible and completely natural at the same time. The air hummed lightly, a low, soothing vibration like the earth itself, purring in contentment. Aron let his thoughts sink deeper into that dream. His mind grew lighter, his breath quieter, his body heavier, safer, grounded in warmth. The valley deepened in color. The grass swayed in a rhythm that matched his breath. The white creature lay curled beside the warm earth, its eyes half closed in peaceful rest. The dream did not pull him, it welcomed him. A soft voice, not spoken, not heard, but felt, reached him from the calm around him. Rest now, follow the quiet, dream gently. And Aron allowed himself to drift further, his mind sliding smoothly into the dreamscape, carried by winter's soft, steady lullaby, deeper and deeper, until the waking world dissolved completely and the dream embraced him fully, warm, quiet, and endlessly gentle. In the quiet depth of Aron's dream, the world became softer than snow. Shapes melted into gentle light, colors drifted like quiet breaths, and the warm valley glowed far beneath him. He felt no weight, no thought, only a slow floating, as if he were resting inside winter's heartbeat. The white creature curled nearby, silent and calm, its breath guiding the dream into deeper stillness. Everything blended into one warm pulse. A slow rise, a slow fall, until Aron's mind drifted beyond story into pure, peaceful silence.